The engine made a strange noise again. Kang Tae-ho wiped the oil from his hands and sighed. The Wandering Star was an old ship. She was tired. Her metal bones creaked and groaned like an old woman climbing stairs. But Tae-ho loved her anyway. He had worked on this ship for 8 years now. He knew every pipe, every wire, every secret corner of her body. It was late at night by ship time. The rest of the crew was sleeping. Captain Park Woo-jin was in his cabin, probably drinking the cheap rice wine he kept hidden under his bed. Yoon Hana, the navigator, was in her room reading old Earth novels on her tablet. The cargo hold was quiet. The stars outside the windows moved slowly past. Cold and distant. Tae-ho walked through the lower deck with his toolbox. The noise was coming from behind the secondary cooling unit. Probably just a loose bolt. Maybe a rat. They sometimes got rats on cargo ships. They hid in the food containers and bred in the dark corners. He got down on his knees and shined his flashlight into the gap between the cooling unit and the wall. What he saw made him drop the light. 2 eyes stared back at him, but they were not rat eyes. They glowed like tiny blue flames. They were beautiful and strange and completely impossible. Tae-ho picked up his flashlight with shaking hands. He looked again, more carefully this time. It was a creature, small, maybe the size of a house cat. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered like oil on water, changing colors as it breathed. Blue, purple, silver, green. It had tiny wings pressed flat against its back. A long tail curled around its body. And those eyes, those burning blue eyes, watched him with fear and something else. Something like hope. Tae-ho had heard stories. Every spacer had heard the stories. The celestial dragons. The oldest beings in the galaxy. They lived for millions of years. They could fly through space without ships. They could breathe fire that burned hotter than stars. The great empires of the galaxy left them alone. Even the most powerful species knew better than to anger the dragons. But dragons were legends. They lived in the deep places of the universe, far from human space, far from anyone. No human had ever seen one. They were like gods, too big and too powerful to be real. And yet here was a baby one, hiding behind his cooling unit, bleeding from a wound on its side. The creature made a small sound. It was not a growl or a hiss. It was more like a bird chirping, soft and sad and scared. Tae-ho felt something twist in his chest. He knew that sound. He had made that sound himself, long ago, when he was a child alone on the streets of Bizen 7. He reached his hand into the gap, slowly, carefully. The creature flinched back at first, but Tae-ho did not move. He just held his hand there, open and still, and waited. After a long moment, the little dragon crept forward. It sniffed his fingers. Then, very gently, it pressed its head against his palm. Its scales were warm, warmer than they should be. And the wound on its side was ugly, dark with dried blood. Something had hurt this baby. Something had chased it, and it had run, and somehow it had ended up here, on a human cargo ship in the middle of nowhere. Tae-ho did not think about what he was doing. He did not think about the rules or the danger or what Captain Woo-jin would say. He simply scooped a little creature into his arms and carried it to his cabin. His cabin was small. Just a bed, a desk, a closet, and a tiny bathroom. But it was private. It was his. He laid the dragon on his bed and looked at the wound more closely. It was a burn. He realized. Plasma fire. Someone had shot this baby. Anger rose in his chest, hot and sudden. Who would shoot a baby? Who would? Hurt something so small and helpless? He found his first aid kit and did what he could. The wound was bad, but not deadly. He cleaned it with antiseptic that made the dragon whimper. He wrapped it with bandages that looked strange against the shimmering scales. He gave the creature water from his own cup, and it drank eagerly. its small tongue lapping at the liquid. When he was done, the dragon looked up at him. Its blue eyes were less afraid now. It made that chirping sound again, but this time it sounded different. Grateful, maybe. Or trusting. Tai-Ho sat on the edge of his bed and stared at the impossible creature that had fallen into his life. He should tell the captain. He knew he should. This was not a stray cat or a lost dog. This was a celestial dragon, the most sacred and powerful beings in the known universe. There would be people looking for it. There would be consequences for hiding it. But when the little dragon crawled into his lap and curled up there, warm and small and completely trusting, Tai-Ho knew he would not tell anyone. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He thought about his own childhood. The cold nights on Bizen 7. The hunger. The loneliness. Nobody had helped him then. Nobody had reached out a hand to a dirty orphan boy with no family and no future. He had survived alone, grown up alone, made himself into something alone. But this little one would not be alone. Not while Tai-Ho was breathing. He needed a name for the creature. He looked at its scales, the way they caught the light and sparkled like the night sky. He thought about the stars outside his window, the ones that had been his only friends during those long childhood nights. Bile, he decided. It meant star in the old Korean tongue. His grandmother had taught him that word, back before she died, back before everything went wrong. Byeol chirped softly, as if she approved. Over the next few days, Tai-Ho fell into a new routine. He woke up early to feed Bile before the others stirred. He found that she liked meat best, especially the dried fish he kept for snacks. She ate eagerly, her tiny teeth surprisingly sharp. After eating, she would curl up in a nest of blankets he made for her in his closet and sleep for hours. Her wound was healing fast, much faster than it should. By the third day, the burn was almost gone, replaced by new scales that gleamed brighter than the rest. Dragon magic, Tai-Ho supposed. Or maybe just dragon biology. Either way, it was remarkable. Bile grew stronger every day. She started to explore his cabin, climbing the walls with her tiny claws, flapping her wings in short bursts that lifted her a few inches off the ground. She was curious about everything. She liked to sit on Tai-Ho's shoulder while he worked at his desk, watching his hands move, chirping questions he could not understand. He started talking to her. He told her about his life, his work, his dreams. He told her about Bizen 7 and his grandmother and the long, hard years that had brought him here. Bile listened to everything, her blue eyes bright and attentive, as if she understood every word. Maybe she did. Dragons were supposed to be smart. Smarter than humans. Smarter than anyone. Maybe this baby understood more than she showed. Keeping her secret was hard. Hannah was sharp, and she noticed that Tai-Ho was acting strange. She asked him why he was spending so much time in his cabin. She asked why he was taking extra food from the kitchen. Tai-Ho lied, badly, and Hannah gave him suspicious looks, but did not push. Captain Woojin noticed nothing. He was too busy worrying about their next cargo run, too busy drinking his rice wine and complaining about fuel costs. The wandering star was barely making money these days. Legal cargo paid little, and Woojin was too honest to take the illegal jobs that paid better. So life continued. The ship flew through space. The engines hummed. And in a small cabin on the lower deck, a human mechanic and a baby dragon grew closer every day. Tai-Ho did not know what the future would bring. He did not know where Bile had come from, or who had hurt her, or what would happen when her family came looking. He only knew that he would protect her, no matter what, no matter who came, no matter the cost. She was just a baby. She was alone and scared and far from home, and Tai-Ho knew exactly how that felt. 2 weeks passed. Bile was getting bigger now. She had doubled in size since Tai-Ho found her. She could no longer hide in the closet. She had to stay under the bed during the day, and even that was becoming difficult. Her wings were growing too. When she stretched them out, they touched both walls of the small cabin. Tai-Ho worried about what would happen when she got too big to hide. But he pushed that worry away. He would deal with it when it came. For now, she was still his secret. His little star, the wandering star, was crossing the frontier nebula. It was a dangerous part of space. The law was weak here. Pirates and smugglers and worse things made their homes in the clouds of gas and dust. Captain Wu Jin wanted to cross quickly, get to the other side, deliver their cargo, and get paid. But the universe had other plans. Tai-Ho was in the engine room when the alarm started. Red lights flashed. Sirens screamed. He dropped his tools and ran to the bridge. Hannah was at her station, her face pale. Captain Wu Jin stood in the center of the room, staring at the main screen with a look Tai-Ho had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. 3 ships had appeared on their sensors. Big ships. Warships. They were closing fast, forming a triangle around the wandering star. There was no escape. The communication screen crackled to life. A face appeared. It was not human. It was reptilian, with green scales and yellow eyes with slit pupils. A deep scar ran across its face, from forehead to jaw, pulling its mouth into a permanent sneer. The creature spoke in a voice like grinding rocks. Its translator made the words understandable, but the threat needed no translation. I am Gruul of the Vorn Syndicate. You have something that belongs to us. A small creature. Scales. Wings. You know what I mean. Give it to us, and you may live. Refuse, and we will tear your ship apart and take it anyway. Wu Jin looked at Hana. Hana looked at the floor. Neither of them knew what the alien was talking about. But Tai-Ho knew. His heart stopped. His blood turned to ice. They were here for BYEOL. He thought about staying quiet. Maybe if he said nothing, they would search the ship, fail to find her, and leave. But that was stupid. These were Vorn, the most ruthless criminal syndicate in the galaxy. They dealt in drugs, slaves, stolen technology, and rare creatures. If they were here, they knew Bile was on board. They had tracked her somehow. They would not stop until they had her. Tai-Ho stepped forward. Captain, I need to tell you something. What followed was the hardest conversation of his life. He told him about Bile, about finding her, about hiding her, about the wound and the healing, and the 2 weeks of secret care. Wu Jin listened with his jaw tight. When Tai-Ho finished, the captain was silent for a long moment. You brought a celestial dragon onto my ship, he said slowly. You hid it from me. You lied to me. And now we have the Vorn Syndicate ready to kill us all. I know, Tai-Ho said. I'm sorry. Hana slammed her hand on her console. Sorry does not help us. They have 3 warships. We have nothing. No weapons. No shields. We are a cargo freighter. We carry vegetables and machine parts. We cannot fight them. Gruul's face appeared on the screen again. He was growing impatient. We are done waiting. Open your cargo bay doors and let us board. If you resist, we will open the doors ourselves. The hard way. Wu Jin rubbed his face with both hands. The weight of the decision pressed down on him. He was not a brave man. He was not a hero. He was just a captain trying to keep his ship flying and his crew alive. Give them the creature, he said finally. His voice was hollow. Tai-Ho felt his heart break. No, we have no choice, Wu Jin said. It is one dragon or all of us. I choose this. She's a baby, Tai-Ho said. His voice was shaking now. Do you know what they will do to her? They will cut her apart. Sell her piece by piece. Her scales, her blood, her bones. She will die screaming, and she will die alone. And the last thing she will know is that the person who promised to protect her gave her away to monsters. Hana looked away. Her eyes were wet. Wu Jin met Taeho's gaze. What do you want me to do? Tell me. Give me an answer. How do we fight 3 warships with a cargo freighter? Taeho had no answer. He knew the captain was right. There was no way to win this fight. No clever trick, no secret weapon, no miracle waiting to save them. They were small and weak and completely outmatched. But Taeho thought about Bile, about her blue eyes and her trusting chirp, about the way she curled up in his lap and fell asleep, about the promise he had made to himself. Even if he had never spoken it out loud, he would protect her. No matter what. No matter the cost. I will not let them take her, he said. Then you are a fool. Wu Jin replied. Maybe. But I am a fool who can live with himself. He turned and walked off the bridge. His legs felt weak. His hands were shaking. But his mind was clear. He went to Hannah's cabin first. She had followed him off the bridge. She stood in the doorway, watching him with red eyes. You cannot win, she said softly. You know that. I know. Then why? Taeho smiled, but there was no joy in it. Because some things matter more than winning. Some things matter more than living. Hannah was silent. Then she crossed to her desk and opened a drawer. She pulled out an old gun. It was a ballistic pistol, the kind that fired metal bullets instead of plasma. Ancient technology. Almost useless against modern armor. But it was something. She pressed it into his hands. Her fingers lingered on his for a moment. Do not be stupid, she said. Her voice cracked. Too late for that. He went to his cabin. Bile was under the bed, trembling. She knew something was wrong. She could feel it somehow. When Taeho knelt beside her, she crawled into his arms and pressed her head against his chest. It is okay, he whispered. I am here. I am not leaving you, she chirped softly. She believed him. She trusted him completely. Taeho wished he deserved that trust. He carried her to the cargo hold. It was the biggest room on the ship, filled with crates and containers. If the Vorn boarded, they would come here first. He could make his stand here. Buy time. Maybe enough time for Wu Jin and Hana to escape in the shovel. It was not much of a plan. But it was all he had. He built a barricade from the crates. He set Bile behind him in the deepest corner. He checked his gun. 8 bullets. 8 chances to do something that probably would not matter. The ship shuddered. The Vorn were forcing the cargo bay doors open. Taeho took a deep breath. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Fear flooded through him. Every part of his body screamed at him to run, to hide, to give up. But he stayed. He stayed for Bile. He stayed because she was small and scared and had nobody else. The doors groaned and began to open. Cold space air rushed in before the emergency shields sealed the gap. Shadows moved beyond the opening. Big shadows. Armed shadows. Taeho raised his gun. I am sorry, Bile, he whispered. I do not think I can save you. But I will try. I will try until I cannot try anymore, she chirped. She pressed closer to his back. She was not running. She was not hiding. She was staying with him. Together, they waited for the monsters to come. The Vorn came through the cargo doors like shadows made of nightmares. There were 7 of them. 6 soldiers in heavy black armor, carrying plasma rifles that glowed with deadly blue light. And behind them, their leader, Grohl. He was bigger in person than he had looked on the screen. Nearly 2 meters tall, with thick green scales and muscles that bulged under his armor. The scar on his face was even uglier up close. His yellow eyes swept the cargo hold until they found Taeho. The Vorn leader laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. 1 human. 1 gun. 6 of my best soldiers. Grohl stepped forward, his heavy boots thudding on the metal floor. I was expecting more. Your captain, maybe. Your crew. But no. Just you. The mechanic. Taiho kept his gun raised. His arm was shaking, but he did not let it fall. I am enough. Grohl tilted his head. He seemed more amused than threatened. You are brave. Stupid, but brave. I can respect that. So I will give you one chance. Step aside. Give me the dragon hatchling. I will let you live. I will even let your friends live. No one needs to die today. Behind Taiho, Bile whimpered. She could feel the danger. She could smell the violence in the air. She pressed herself against his legs, trembling. Taiho thought about the offer. It would be so easy. Just step aside. Let them take her. Go back to his life. Fix engines. Drink with Hana. Pretend none of this ever happened. But he knew what would happen too. Bile, the Vorn Syndicate dealt in rare creatures. They sold them to the highest bidder. Sometimes alive, to collectors who kept them in cages. Sometimes in pieces, to doctors and scientists and dark magicians who believed dragon parts had power. A baby dragon like Bile would be worth a fortune. Her scales alone could buy a starship. Her blood could buy a fleet. They would take her apart slowly, keeping her alive as long as possible, harvesting everything they could. She would die in pain. She would die alone. She would die knowing that the one person who promised to protect her had let her go. Ho could not live with that. He would rather die. She is not yours, he said. His voice was steady now. The fear was still there, but something else was stronger. Something hard and cold and unbreakable. Gruel's amusement faded. His eyes narrowed. You understand what will happen now. You understand that you cannot win? I understand. And you still refuse? Taiho aimed his gun at Gruel's face. I still refuse. For a long moment, nobody moved. The Vorn soldiers waited for their leader's order. Gruel stared at Taiho with something that might have been respect or might have been pity. Then the moment passed. Kill him, Gruel said. But aim carefully. Do not hit the dragon. The first plasma bolt came so fast that Taiho barely saw it. It hit his left shoulder with a sound like thunder. Pain exploded through his body. He staggered but did not fall. His shirt caught fire. He smelled his own flesh burning. He fired back. The bullet hit one of the soldiers in the neck, finding the gap between helmet and chestplate. The Vorn fell with a gurgling scream. The other soldiers hesitated. They had not expected the human to actually hurt them. Taiho fired again. Another bullet, another target. This one hit a soldier in the arm. Not a kill, but enough to make him drop his rifle. Gruel roared in anger. He grabbed a rifle from one of his soldiers and fired. The second bolt hit Taiho in the leg. He went down to one knee. The pain was worse this time. Hotter, deeper. He could not feel his foot anymore, but he kept his gun up. He kept firing. Another bullet hit a soldier's chestplate and bounced away harmlessly. Another missed completely. He only had 2 bullets left now. Behind him, Bile was screaming. Not a chirp this time. A real scream, high and piercing and full of terror. She had never seen violence before. She did not understand what was happening. She only knew that her protector was hurt, that monsters were coming, that everything was wrong. The scream seemed to echo strangely. It went beyond the walls of the ship, beyond the metal and the machines, out into the void itself, as if it was searching for something, calling for something. But Taiho did not notice. He was too busy trying to stay alive. Gruel walked toward him slowly. The Vorn leader was done playing. His yellow eyes burned with cold fury. You killed one of my soldiers. Wounded another. With an ancient weapon that should be in a museum. Gruel shook his head. I would be impressed if I was not so angry. Taiho raised his gun with a trembling hand. 2 bullets left. They would not pierce Gruel's armor. They would not save him. but he was going to use them anyway. "Stay back," he said. Grohl laughed. "Or what? You will bleed on me?" His boot came down on Tejo's wounded leg. The pain was so great that Tejo almost blacked out. He screamed, and Bile screamed with him. "Give me the dragon," Grohl said. Last chance. Tejo could barely see. His vision was going dark at the edges. Blood was pooling under him. He was dying. He knew he was dying, but he still had enough strength for one more act of defiance. He dragged himself backward. He put himself between Grohl and Bile. He spread his arms wide, using his body as a shield. "You will have to kill me first," he whispered. Grohl stared at him for a long moment. Then the Vorn leader shrugged. "As you wish." He raised his rifle. The plasma chamber glowed bright blue, charging for a kill shot. Tejo closed his eyes. He thought about his grandmother, about the stars, about Bile's trusting eyes and soft chirp. "I am sorry, little star." I tried. Behind him. Bile stopped screaming. The cargo hold fell silent. Even the Vorn soldiers seemed to freeze. And then Tejo felt something strange. A warmth, a pressure, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. He opened his eyes. The space outside the cargo door was changing. The stars were moving. Not slowly, like they always did, but fast. Faster than light. Swirling together like water going down a drain. And at the center of the swirl, something was forming. Something big. Grohl saw it too. His yellow eyes went wide. His rifle wavered. "No," he whispered. "That is not possible." The swirl of stars exploded outward. Reality tore open like a wound in the sky. And through that wound came something that made Grohl and his soldiers look like insects. A dragon. Not a baby. Not small. Vast beyond comprehension. Her scales shimmered like liquid metal, silver and black and gold all at once. Her eyes burned with the light of dying suns. Her wings stretched across the void, wider than any ship Tejo had ever seen. And she was angry. Her voice did not come through speakers or translators. It came from everywhere. From the walls, from the air, from the bones of everyone who heard it. It was not sound. It was power. "Who dares harm my child?" Grohl dropped his rifle. His soldiers turned and ran, scrambling back toward their ship. It was too late. The dragon took a breath, and when she released it, she did not breathe fire. She breathed starlight. The Vorn ships vanished. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Erased. One moment they were there. The next, they were nothing but fading atoms dissolving into the void. Grohl screamed. He tried to run. He did not make it 2 steps. The dragon looked at him with eyes older than planets. And Grohl simply stopped existing. Then she turned her gaze to the tiny cargo freighter. To the wounded human. To the small dragon hatchling who was chirping and crying and reaching toward her with tiny wings. The universe waited to see what the Empress would do next. Tejo could not move. He could barely breathe. The pain in his shoulder and leg was fading, replaced by something stranger. A numbness that spread through his whole body. He was dying. He knew he was dying. But that did not seem to matter anymore. Nothing seemed to matter compared to what he was seeing. The dragon outside the cargo door was impossibly beautiful. Her scales caught the light of distant stars and turned it into colors that had no names. Her eyes were twin galaxies, spinning slowly with ancient power. She was not just a creature. She was a force of nature given form. She was everything the legends had said and more. The Empress. The mother of all celestial dragons. The oldest and most powerful being in the known universe. And she was looking directly at him. Tejo felt fear. Not the fear he had felt when facing Grohl. This was deeper. Primal. The fear of a mouse before an eagle. The fear of a candle before the sun. He was nothing to this being. Less than nothing. She could erase him with a thought, but behind him, Bile was chirping. Not afraid anymore. Happy. The baby dragon pushed past Taeho's broken body and ran toward the cargo door. Her little wings flapping, her tail wagging like an excited puppy. The Empress watched her daughter approach, and something changed in those star-bright eyes. The anger faded. The power dimmed. What remained was something Taeho recognized. Something he had seen in every parent who ever loved their child. Relief. The Empress's vast form began to shimmer, to shrink. The scales folded in on themselves. The wings drew close. The terrible size collapsed into something smaller. Something almost human. When the light faded, a woman stood in the cargo doorway. She was tall and slender, with silver hair that fell to her waist and golden eyes that still held the echo of stars. She wore robes that seemed woven from moonlight. She was beautiful in the way a storm is beautiful. Dangerous and awe-inspiring, and not quite of this world. She knelt and opened her arms. Bile ran into them with a joyful cry. The Empress held her daughter close, pressing her face against those shimmering scales. And for a moment she was not an ancient cosmic being. She was just a mother who had found her lost child. "Little one," she whispered. "My Bile, I searched everywhere. I called across the stars. I thought I had lost you forever." Bile chirped and nuzzled against her mother's neck. She was trying to tell her something. Her small head kept turning back toward Taeho. Her tiny claws pointed at the broken human lying in a pool of his own blood. The Empress looked up. Her golden eyes found Taeho. She studied him for a long moment. The wound in his shoulder, the hole in his leg, the gun still clutched in his hand, the barricade he had built, the position of his body placed between her daughter and danger. She understood. Slowly, still holding Bile, she walked toward him. Taeho tried to move, to bow, to show respect. But his body would not obey. He could only lie there, bleeding and broken, watching the most powerful being in the universe approach. She knelt beside him. Up close, she smelled like rain and flowers and the cold emptiness between stars. Her face was gentle now. The anger was gone completely. "You are dying," she said. Her voice was soft, musical, nothing like the thunderous roar that had destroyed the Vorn fleet. Taeho tried to speak. Blood bubbled on his lips. Probably he managed. The Empress tilted her head. She looked at him the way a scientist might look at a strange new specimen. Curious, puzzled. "You faced armed soldiers," she said. "You took plasma fire. You killed one of them and wounded another, with a weapon that could not pierce their armor. You knew you could not win. You knew you would die. And yet you stayed. Why?" Taeho thought about the question. It was hard to think. Everything was getting fuzzy. But he found the answer somewhere in the fog of his dying mind, because she was scared. He looked at Bile, who was watching him with worried blue eyes. Because she was alone. That was enough. The Empress was silent for a long time. Centuries passed behind her golden eyes. Millennia of memories, of encounters with other species, of watching the galaxy spin through its endless cycles. No one had ever done this before. No lesser being had ever risked their life for a celestial dragon. Other species feared them or worshipped them or tried to exploit them. But none of them had ever simply protected them out of kindness, until this small, fragile human with his useless gun and his broken body. "You gave her a name," the Empress said. Her voice was strange now, almost wondering. Byel. It means star. In the old Korean tongue. "Yes, I know." She reached out and touched his face. Her fingers were warm against his cold skin. "It is a good name." She pressed her hand against his chest. Taeho gasped. Warmth flooded through him. Not the warmth of fever or pain, but something else. Something deeper. something that felt like starlight flowing through his veins. The wound in his shoulder closed. The flesh knit together, the burns healed, the blood stopped flowing. The hole in his leg sealed itself. Bone and muscle and skin were forming as if the injury had never happened. Taeho gasped again, this time in wonder. The pain was gone. Not just reduced, but gone completely. He felt stronger than he had ever felt, healthier, more alive. He sat up slowly, touching his shoulder where the wound had been. There was no mark, no scar, nothing but smooth skin. How did you do that? He asked. The Empress smiled. It was a small smile, but it transformed her face, made her look almost human, almost kind. I am very old, she said. I have learned many things. Healing is the least of them. Byel chirped happily. She crawled out of her mother's arms and climbed into Taeho's lap. She butted her head against his chest, the way she always did when she wanted attention. She was not afraid anymore. She was home, and her human was safe, and everything was right with the world. Tae-ho held her gently. His eyes burned with tears he could not explain. I thought I was going to fail her, he whispered. I thought they were going to take her. I tried so hard, but I was not strong enough. The Empress watched them together. The broken human and the baby dragon. The orphan who knew what it meant to be alone and the child who would never be alone again. You were strong enough, she said. Strength is not about winning. It is about refusing to give up. You faced impossible odds. You took wounds that should have killed you, and you never stopped fighting. That is strength. That is courage. That is something I have not seen in a very long time. She stood. Her robe shimmered in the dim light of the cargo hold. The celestial dragons do not forget kindness. We do not ignore debts. You saved my daughter's life. You protected her when no one else would. That means something. That means everything. She raised her hand. Light gathered at her fingertips, silver and gold and white. Taeho, she said. That is your name, yes? Yes. Kong Taeho. Remember this moment. Remember what happens when a human chooses to be brave. The light flowed from her hand to his wrist. He felt a brief warmth, a tingling sensation. When he looked down, a mark had appeared on his skin. A silver dragon, coiled around a golden star. It was beautiful. It was permanent. It was a brand that would change his life forever. From this day forward, the Empress said, You are under my protection. Harm you, and the offender faces the wrath of the eternal flight. All of dragonkind will know your face, your name, your story. You will want for nothing. Live well, Kang Taeho. Live long. Taeho stared at the mark. He did not know what to say. He had not done this for a reward. He had not done it for power or protection or gratitude. He had done it because it was right. Because a scared child needed help, and he was there to give it. But the Empress understood that. She understood that was exactly why he deserved this gift. Bile chirped sadly. She did not want to leave. She pressed herself against Taeho's chest, her tiny claws gripping his shirt. The Empress laughed. It was a warm sound full of love. She likes you, she said. She has bonded with you. That is rare for our kind. Very rare. Will I see her again? Taeho asked. The Empress looked at him with those star-bright eyes. Perhaps. The universe is vast, but it is also small. Those who are meant to meet will find each other again. She reached down and gently lifted Bile from his lap. The baby dragon whimpered, but did not fight. Thank you, Taeho said. Saving us. For healing me. For everything. The Empress paused. She looked at him one last time. No. Thank you. For showing me that humans are capable of more than I believed. For reminding me that kindness still exists in this cold universe. She turned and walked toward the cargo door. Reality bent around her. The stars began to swirl again. The gateway was opening, but before she stepped through, she looked back over her shoulder. Perhaps your kind is not as small as the galaxy believes. And then she was gone. The gateway closed. The stars returned to their proper places. The cargo hold was silent and empty, lit only by the emergency lights and the fading glow of magic. Tejo sat alone among the scattered crates. He looked at the mark on his wrist. He touched it with his other hand. It was real. It was all real. He started to laugh. Softly at first, then louder. Tears streamed down his face. He was not sure if he was happy or sad or terrified or relieved. Maybe all of them at once thought he had just met a god. He had just been saved by a god. He had just been blessed by a god. And all because he had refused to abandon the scared little dragon. The universe, he was starting to realize, had a strange sense of humor. The wandering star limped into port 3 days later. One engine was damaged. The cargo bay doors were bent and scarred. The whole ship looked like it had been through a war. Which, in a way, it had. Captain Wu Jin stood at the helm, his hands gripping the controls. He had not slept since the attack. He had not spoken much either. He just stared ahead, his eyes distant, his mind trying to process what he had seen. A celestial dragon. An actual celestial dragon. The most powerful being in the known universe had appeared next to his ship, destroyed an entire Vorn fleet with a single breath, and then healed his mechanic like it was nothing. Wu Jin was not a religious man, but he was starting to reconsider. Hana sat at her navigation console. Her hands moved automatically, guiding the ship through the final approach. But her eyes kept drifting to Tejo, who stood at the back of the bridge, watching the port grow larger through the window. He looked different now. Not physically. He was still the same man, with the same rough hands and tired eyes. But there was something new about him. A calmness. A confidence. As if he had faced the worst the universe could throw at him and discovered that he could survive it. The mark on his wrist glowed faintly in the dim light. Silver and gold, beautiful and strange. A dragon coiled around a star. They docked without problems. The port authority asked questions about the damage to the ship. Wu Jin lied smoothly, blaming pirates and narrow escapes. The officials seemed to believe him. Why would they suspect anything else? But word spread quickly in space stations. Within hours, rumors were flying through the bars and markets and back alleys of the port. Did you hear? A human cargo ship was attacked by the Vorn. The Vorn? Those monsters? How did anyone survive? That is the thing. A celestial dragon appeared. She destroyed the Vorn ships like they were nothing. Impossible. The dragons do not care about humans. This one did. She protected them. Saved them. Because of something one of the crew did. What did he do? He saved her daughter. The rumors grew and changed as they spread. By the end of the first day, the story had become legend. By the end of the first week, it had spread across the sector. By the end of the first month, it had reached every corner of known space. The human who saved the Dragon Princess. The mechanic who faced down an army. The man who earned the blessing of the Empress herself. Kang Tejo became famous without trying, without wanting. He had always been a quiet man who liked simple things. Engines and tools and the hum of a ship moving through space. Now people wanted to shake his hand, buy him drinks, hear his story. He hated it. But the fame brought other things too. Things he did not expect. A message came from the Galactic Council, the governing body of the major spacefaring species. They wanted to meet him, to hear his account firsthand, to understand what it meant that a human had earned the protection of the dragons. Tejo went, because Wu Jin and Hana made him go. He stood in a grand hall filled with beings from 100 different worlds. He told his story simply, without drama or exaggeration. He told them about finding Bile, about hiding her, about the Vorn attack and his decision to fight, about the Empress and what she had done. When he finished, the hall was silent. Then one of the council members, a tall being with blue skin and silver eyes, spoke. "You ask nothing from us?" Taeho shook his head. "I did not do it for reward. I did not do it for fame or power. I did it because a child needed help, and I was there." The council members looked at each other. They were not used to such simplicity. In their world, everything had a price. Every action was negotiation. But Taeho was not negotiating. He was just telling the truth. The blue-skinned being spoke again. "You have changed things, Kang Taeho. For centuries, humans have been seen as lesser, small, weak, short-lived, unimportant. But you have shown that these things do not define worth. You have shown that the smallest being can possess the greatest courage." Taeho did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He just nodded and left. Life returned to something like normal after that. The wandering star was repaired. The crew took new jobs. Wu Jin was still grumpy. Hana still read her old Earth novels. Taeho still fixed engines and cleaned pipes and did all the dirty work that nobody else wanted to do. But things were different too. The mark on his wrist never faded. Other species treated him with a respect they had never shown before. Doors opened. Opportunities appeared. The celestial dragons had made him untouchable, and everyone knew it. Tae-Ho did not use his new status for power or wealth. He did not become a politician or a businessman or a celebrity. He stayed exactly who he had always been. A mechanic who loved his ship and his crew and the quiet hum of engines in the night. But sometimes, on quiet nights when the stars were bright and the ship was still, something magical would happen. A shimmer of scales would appear at his window, silver and blue and purple, catching the starlight and turning it into rainbows. Bile, now much bigger than she had been, would press her nose against the glass and chirp until he opened the hatch. She visited whenever she could. Her mother allowed it because she understood the bond between them. Taeho had saved Bile's life. He had given her a name. He had loved her when she was small and scared and far from home. That kind of connection did not break. That kind of love did not fade. They would sit together in his cabin, the dragon and the mechanic. Taeho would tell her about his life, about the jobs he had taken, the places he had seen. Bile would chirp and rumble, and sometimes breathe small puffs of fire that made Taeho laugh and duck for cover. She was growing fast. In a few more years, she would be as big as a starship. In a few centuries, she would be as vast as her mother. She would live for millions of years, see empires rise and fall, watch stars be born and die. And Taeho would be long gone by then. Humans live such short lives. 100 years if they were lucky. A blink of an eye to a celestial dragon. But Bile did not seem to care about that. She cherished every moment they had together. She remembered every story he told, every laugh they shared, every quiet night watching the stars. He would be her first memory, her first friend, the human who had taught her what kindness looked like. And when he was gone, she would carry that memory for eternity. She would tell her children and her children's children about the mechanic who faced down an army with a useless gun and a brave heart. She would make sure the galaxy never forgot Kang Taeho, because that is what dragons do. They remember. Across the galaxy, things were changing. Humans were no longer seen as lesser. Other species watched them with new eyes. They were small, yes, fragile, short-lived, but they were also brave in ways that other species could not understand. They would die for strangers. They would fight impossible battles for principles they could not even explain. They were unpredictable, dangerous, and perhaps magnificent. Be careful with the humans, the whispers said. They are not as small as they seem. They will fight for what they love. They will die for what matters. And the dragons remembered Dot in his cabin on the wandering star. Tejo sat with Bile's head in his lap. He stroked their scales gently, feeling their warmth, watching them shimmer in the starlight. "I am glad I found you," he said softly. Byel chirped. She closed her eyes and pressed closer. Outside the window, the universe stretched on forever. Billions of stars, trillions of worlds, an infinity of possibilities. And somewhere in that vast darkness, a bond had been formed that would outlast them all. A human and a dragon, a mechanic and a princess. Two souls who had found each other against all odds and refused to let go. That is the power of kindness. That is the gift of courage. That is the story of Kang Tejo, and it is far from over.